Close your eyes and step beyond the veil of sleep into the dream realm. Tonight we journey through the dream as it was dreamt. We begin in a place of refuge, but soon encounter figures that test our courage. We face what we fear and are drawn into a room where something unfolds that we never thought possible. And in that darkness, everything changes. And now, the dream realm presents the Operation Table of Shadows. Here the night speaks in whispers and symbols, and every dream holds a hidden truth waiting for those who dare to look deeper. Now let's begin. The house felt borrowed, like it had been lived in by someone else, and then left at the exact temperature of their absence. Everything about it was stripped down, almost provisional. The kind of space you'd expect in a college dorm, or the first apartment of a couple still learning how to build a home. The furniture was skeletal, the kind that served its function without personality, and the walls stood bare, pale, without a single painting, photo, or decoration to suggest memory. The whole place seemed washed in a faint blush tint, as if the air itself had taken on the color of half-forgotten warmth. It wasn't beautiful, not in any traditional sense. Too stark, too empty, but it was safe. A few friends drifted through the rooms, their footsteps soft against the bare floorboards, their voices hushed to a level of quiet whispers. The house absorbed their murmurs, turning them into echoes that didn't quite belong, like sounds carried from another time. I sat in the dining room, shoulders heavy, lowering myself into the chair, as if the act of sitting could erase the weight pressing down on me. My hands rested uselessly on the table's edge, fingertips tracing the grain of wood, trying to find comfort in its solidness. I told myself to breathe, to let the silence and the presence of my friends soothe me. But underneath every inhale ran the steady beat of a thought I couldn't shake. This safety is only temporary. It settled in my chest like a drumbeat, insistent, inescapable. The air was too still. It carried the faint smell of dust and forgotten linen, as if the air were holding its breath, waiting for permission to move again. My eyes kept snagging on the corners of the room, half expecting the shadows there to bend or breathe. I heard the scrape of a chair in another room, followed by the soft hush of laughter, quickly smothered, as if even joy had to keep its head down here. I leaned back, but the chair creaked too loudly, the sound sharp against the hush. My chest tightened. The thought returned like a hammer against the inside of my skull. We are safe, but only for now. How long until they found us? The stillness began to change before I could name it. It wasn't a sound, not at first. More like a weight in the air, a thickness that pressed in at the edges of the room. The whispers of my friends faded, not because they'd stopped speaking, but because something heavier seemed to swallow their voices, thinning them into silence. I sat rigid at the dining table, ears straining. The wooden beams creaked in the next room over, not with the casual settling of a house, but in a slow, deliberate pattern, as though footsteps were moving towards me. My chest thudded in broken rhythm, urgent, uneven. The shadows along the hallway deepened, stretching where the light should have kept them in place. They bent unnaturally, as though the house itself had grown tired of holding them back. I told myself not to look, not to feed the thought rising sharp and insistent in my mind. But then movement, subtle, deliberate. A man stepped out of the darkness, his body almost ordinary in outline, his clothing dark and clean, though it seemed to swallow more light than it should. His posture was straight, his movements controlled, as if every muscle obeyed a purpose I couldn't see. For a moment, he could have been anyone, until his face lifted. His eyes glowed with a deep, unnatural red. They didn't shine so much as burn, catching mine and holding them fast. The air around him shifted, growing colder, heavier, like a storm about to break. He carried himself with the patience of someone who already knew the ending. He began to move toward me, not a shuffle, not a stagger, but a slow, certain stride. His steps made no sound at first, and then faintly, too faintly, I heard them, like fabric brushing soft against itself. With each pace, the air thickened, pressing me down into the chair, urging me to stay still. My throat clenched. My heart raced. I told myself I had to move, that waiting here meant giving myself over. I forced my body upright, the scrape of the chair on the floor breaking the hush, and walked into the next room. My legs carried me forward, though every step felt like I was dragging myself deeper into the inevitable. In the next room, I saw a chance to escape. I steadied myself and started towards the opposite doorway, each step deliberate, careful, as if moving too quickly might draw something out of the shadows. My eyes fixed on the frame ahead, on the promise of another exit, some fragile hope of distance. Then the space shifted. The shadows near the doorway bent inward, pulling together like curtains being drawn. Out of that dimness, another figure emerged. Her outline sharpened step by step. Her eyes found mine, red, steady, burning with a quiet hunger, and the air in my lungs stalled. She didn't rush forward. She didn't need to. I backed into the corner, my hands brushing the cold plaster of the wall, realizing too late I had trapped myself. The second figure held the doorway with effortless certainty, her red eyes never leaving mine. The weight of her gaze pressed me deeper into the corner until the shadows themselves seemed to fold around me. Then another figure appeared, and another. They filled in one by one, silent and deliberate, their dark clothing blending them into the edges of the room until suddenly there were too many shapes. I counted each shape as they piled in, 6, 7, maybe 8. Each set of eyes glowed faintly, a dozen points of red watching, unblinking, as though they had all been waiting for this precise moment. This was it. There was no way through them, no window to break, no plan that hadn't already been collapsed. I felt the truth settle in my chest like lead. There was no fighting them. I was too tired, too weak, too hollowed out by everything that had come before. Whatever strength I might have once had was gone. Then finally one of them spoke. The voice was low, steady, and far too calm for what it carried. Are you finally ready to come with us? The question hung in the air, patient but merciless, as if the only acceptable answer had already been written. My mouth went dry. I felt the meaning of it press against my skin. This wasn't about fighting, wasn't even about survival. This was about surrender, about stepping over into whatever shadow waited behind their red eyes. No, I whispered at first, then louder, panicked. Wait, not yet, please, just wait. I'll bring others, friends. If it's me you want, I'll come back with them. A ripple passed through the group, subtle as a change in the wind, but I felt it all the same. A lean forward, the faintest brightening of their eyes. Not joy exactly, but expectation. A hunger sharpened by patience. The one closest to me tilted his head, his voice a low murmur that seemed to bypass my ears and sink straight into my chest. Which ones will you bring? My throat locked. Faces rose unbidden in my mind. My friends, their laughter still hanging in the air like fragile glass about to shatter. My lips parted, desperate to stall, to weave another lie, and then the sound came. Footsteps from the other room. One by one, my friends appeared in the doorway, as if summoned by the words I had let slip. Their expressions were strangely calm, even steady, as if they already understood what was being asked of them. The red-eyed figures leaned in slightly, their focus shifting, the room tightening with a different kind of anticipation. One of my friends took a step forward, and for the first time since they had cornered me, their eyes weren't solely fixed on me. That small mercy was enough. I pressed myself out of the corner, moving stiffly along the walls. My legs felt heavy, as if each step was being pulled down into the floor. My arms hung useless at my sides. I wasn't escaping so much as dragging myself away, my body running on fumes, my mind screaming only one thing: just keep moving. I slipped through the threshold, the sound of their hushed voices growing dim behind me. My chest still heaved like I had been sprinting for miles. My breath caught and stuttered in my throat, every inhale raw. Sweat clung to my skin. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I could barely walk. Every muscle ached with the kind of weariness that isn't just in the body, but in the spirit, the bone-deep certainty that I was already too far gone to win. And then she appeared. She stepped from the shadows ahead of me, not with menace, but with the inevitability of someone who had been there all along. The light fell across her face first, familiar, arresting. A woman I recognized as both fierce and tender. Her presence didn't startle me. It stopped me. It steadied me in a way my body no longer could. Her gaze moved over me, taking in the slump of my shoulders, the drag in my breath, the way I leaned against the wall just to remain upright. When she spoke, her voice carried both firmness and care, a command laced with something softer. "You can't keep doing this," she said, her eyes unyielding. "They'll take you if you keep running like this." The words struck the truth I had been avoiding. My body sagged under them, not in defeat, but in acknowledgement. I wanted to argue, to pretend I still had fight left, but the lie wouldn't come. I was too tired, too beaten down. I couldn't even hold myself together anymore. Not without her standing there, in that hallway, bracing me with nothing more than her presence. She leaned in closer, her presence overwhelming, but not suffocating. A gravity I could finally collapse into instead of resist. Every part of me wanted to sag against her, to let her strength hold me where mine had failed. Her voice came low, almost tender, but it carried the weight of a command. "The least you can do," she murmured, "is receive the white ghost kiss." Her words weren't just a suggestion, they were a plea, threaded with urgency. They needed me. I wasn't expendable here. I was important, and whatever came next depended on me continuing. I knew what she meant. We both did. The kiss wasn't hers to give. It was supposed to come from one of them, the red-eyed figures who had cornered me, waited for me, pressed me into the walls of the house. From them the white ghost kiss would grant immunity, would seal me against their hunger, would lend me the strength I'd been stripped of. I wanted to answer, but my throat stayed dry. I had nothing left, No protest, no argument, not even a nod. My silence stretched in the space between us. She didn't wait. Her hand closed firmly around my arm, her grip strong enough to remind me of how weak I'd become. Without another word, she pulled me forward, guiding me with a force that was both unrelenting and protective. My legs stumbled after hers, every step heavier than the last. I couldn't fight her hold, and a part of me didn't want to. She dragged me into another room. The air shifted the moment we crossed the threshold. Cooler, sharper, tinged with the faint scent of antiseptic and metal. In the center stood an operating table. White sheets stretched smooth across its surface. Instruments lined neatly beside it. Gleaming faintly in the low light, the walls felt closer here. The silence, deeper. She didn't pause, didn't give me a chance to hesitate. With one firm pull, she brought me to the side of the table and guided me down onto it. The sheet was cold against my back, the surface unyielding, and I felt the weight of my own body sink heavily into it. My limbs were clumsy, too tired to resist, too spent to even pretend at strength. She leaned over me for a moment, her presence failing my vision. There was no doubt in her eyes, no wavering in her expression. Only certainty, the kind I could no longer find in myself. She placed her hand against my chest, steadying me, holding me in place, not with force, but with authority I couldn't question. "I need you to trust me," she said quietly, the words wrapping around me like both a command and a comfort. Before I could reply, before I could muster even a whisper, she bent down and pressed her lips to mine. The kiss was tender. It was deliberate, purposeful, sealing something into me. Heat stirred beneath my skin, faint at first, then spread like a slow fire through my veins. My chest loosened, breath flowing easier, and for the first time in what felt like hours, strength flickered faintly inside me. Then she stepped aside. From the corner of the room, a figure emerged. One of them. Dark clothing, human in outline, but those eyes gave her away. Red, steady, alive with purpose. Unlike the others, she carried herself with precision, with a strange calm that felt more surgical than predatory. I lay there, staring at her approach, my body refusing to rise. Fear tightened in my, but exhaustion kept me still. If this was how it ended, then so be it. She stopped at the side of the table, her face close enough now that I could see the human shape of it. Cheekbones, lips, skin that should have looked ordinary, but her eyes betrayed her. "You hurt me once," she said softly, almost conversationally. The words slid into the air with no effort, but their weight pressed hard against my chest. She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. Some part of me remembered exactly what she meant. I swallowed, my throat tight. I know. The words never left my lips, but they lived in the silence between us. Her hand moved, and I caught the gleam of something sharp. Not a knife. Porcupine quills, bundled in her grip. She raised one, tested it against the air, and then pressed it into my skin. I braced for pain, but none came. only pressure, followed by a creeping numbness that spread outward like ink in water. Another quill, then another, each one sinking in, each one stealing away more of my strength until even the urge to resist slipped out of reach. My arms grew heavy, my legs refused command, my breath came slow and shallow. Paralysis. The room dimmed around the edges. I could feel myself sliding deeper, my body yielding to her preparation. She worked with a strange precision, her focus absolute, and I realized this wasn't anger, wasn't vengeance. This was procedure. At her side, the woman, the one who had led me here, reached for the tray of instruments and started to operate simultaneously. Their hands moved with such certainty. It was as if the two of them shared a single mind. Instruments shifted in and out of view, blades and clamps and things with edges I couldn't name, catching the low light in brief flashes before disappearing again. I wanted to flinch, to twist away, but the quills had already stolen that from me. All I could do was watch as their work blurred into a rhythm. Then the darkness began to pull me under. Not sudden, but steady, like water rising over my head. My body sank into it with no resistance, too tired to fight, too weak to care. For a moment, there was only black, thick, complete swallowing. Yet even in the blackness, I could feel the intensity. The void wasn't empty at all. It thrummed with something immense, a vast current pressing in on every side. It was like standing inside a storm with no wind. The air itself charged, humming, full of power. The pressure wrapped around me and through me, pushing against my skin and into my bones. A weightless weight that felt both crushing and infinite. The energy was so much larger and intense than I could ever remember feeling. It pulsed like a heartbeat all around, each wave rolling through me. It was too much for words, too vast for thought, yet it didn't hurt. It wasn't pain. It was sheer, unfiltered force, and some part of me recognized it. And then from inside the darkness, light stirred. Colors flickered faintly at first. Threads of blue, green, violet. They shifted and pulsed as though alive, each hue moving to a rhythm I could feel but not hear. I understood their dance. I don't know how long I stayed there, or how long I watched, but once the operation was complete, I woke up. The dream fades, but its pulse doesn't. It lingers like a riddle written in light. What was the operation for? Why did the experience feel so heavy? There's something this dream was saying. Something about the house, the red-eyed figures, the woman, the table. When the lights went out, something began. I didn't wake lighter, I woke changed. But the dream never speaks directly. It waits for us to listen, for us to feel, for us to decode the messages found in its symbolism. The story is over, but the dream is just beginning to tell us its secrets. Step with me into the next chapter where we dive into the interpretation and discover the meaning behind the operating table of shadows. Let your dream speak and listen with your heart until we meet again in the dream realm.